Right now, somewhere in your house, there is a little velvet box you haven't opened in years. Maybe it was your mother's. Maybe it came home in a shoebox after you cleared out a parent's place. And inside it, there is an old wedding ring set that you assume is worth almost nothing. I am here to tell you that you might be wrong. Some of these old sets are quietly selling for thousands. Not because of the gold, because of a detail almost nobody thinks to check. Most people glance at grandma's rings, decide they look small and dated, and drop them back in the drawer. That is exactly the mistake I made once. And it cost me. So stay with me, because the single most valuable ring set on this list is one I saved for the very end. And it sold at auction for a number I still can't quite believe. And it started as something somebody nearly gave away. Let me tell you how I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I worked estate cleanouts and stood behind rummage tables at more church sales than I can count. I have held thousands of old rings in my palm, and I will never forget the morning I let a plain little platinum band walk out the door for $11 because I didn't know what the tiny mark stamped inside it meant. The woman who bought it knew. She smiled the whole way to her car. That ring was worth more than everything else on my table combined. I promised myself I would never be fooled like that again. And now I am going to share something that will help you go even deeper than what we cover here today. If you want a complete reference you can hold in your hands and come back to every single time you open a jewelry box, I put everything I know into a book called Hidden Value and its companion volumes Hidden Value and Hidden Worth. Every marker, every era, every signature name, every trick buyers use at the counter, it is all in there, written plainly so anyone can use it. You will find the details on where to get it in the description below. It is the guide I wish I had that morning I let that platinum band walk away for $11. So let's start at the bottom of the ladder and climb, because every ring set I name is worth more than the one before it. Let's begin with the one almost everyone owns, and almost everyone underestimates. The plain old wedding band. Just a simple gold ring, no stone, worn thin and soft from decades on a hand. You look at it and think, that is nothing. That is just a band. But turn it over and look on the inside of the band near the edge. You are hunting for a tiny stamp. It might say 14K, or it might say 585, which means the same thing. It might say 18K or 750. It might say 10K or 417. Those numbers tell you how much pure gold is packed into that ring. An 18-karat band is 75% pure gold. A 14-karat band is a little over 58%. A 10-karat band is a little under 42%. Here is why this matters right now, today. Gold has climbed to levels we have never seen in our lifetimes. A heavy, old 18-karat band that a widow assumes is worth $20 can carry well over $100 in gold alone before anyone even looks at it as jewelry. I have watched people sell a small handful of these old bands and walk out with several $100s, stunned because they had them written off as junk metal, and the heavier the band, the more it holds. Old bands from the early 1900s were often made thick and solid because gold was cheaper then and craftsmen were generous with it. A modern band is often hollow or feather light, so weigh the old one in your hand. If it feels dense, if it has real heft, you may be holding more value than the fancy stone ring next to it. But a plain band is only the floor, because the next set adds a color that tells you exactly when it was made, and that date changes everything. Look for the pink rings. I mean it. If you find a wedding set that has a warm, rosy blush to the gold, almost like it is glowing pink in the light, stop and pay attention. That is rose gold. And rose gold has a story that pins it to a very specific window in time. During the late 1930s and through the 1940s, into about 1950, jewelers fell in love with rose gold and its cousin, green gold. This was the retro era. The world was at war. Platinum was pulled for military use, and jewelers turned to bold, warm-colored gold instead. The rings from this period are big. They are dramatic. They have swooping, sculptural shapes, wide bands, bows, scrolls, fans, sometimes two colors of gold twisted together in the same piece. Here is the detail that thrills me every time. A lot of people look at retro rose gold sets and think they are too flashy, too old-fashioned, not their taste, so they price them cheap, but collectors chase these hard. A genuine retro rose gold wedding set, with its original bold styling and a nice center stone, regularly sells in the several hundreds, and the really sculptural signed ones cross well past $1,000. The tell is the color combined with the shape. Yellow gold is common. Rose gold from this exact era, in that big architectural retro style, is far less common and far more wanted. So, if Grandma's set has that pink glow and looks like something a movie star would wear in an old black and white film, you are not holding junk. You are holding a moment in history that buyers pay for. But color only tells you the era. The next thing I want you to check is the stone itself, because the way a diamond was cut can be worth more than the diamond's size. Here is where most people get robbed without ever knowing it. Pick up any old ring with a diamond in it and look at the stone closely, ideally under a light. A modern diamond is cut by machine to sparkle in a very bright, flashy, uniform way. But an old diamond, a truly old one, looks different. It has a soft, warm, glowing fire instead of that hard white sparkle. It looks a little sleepy, and that sleepy look is money. There are two old cuts you want to learn by heart. The first is the old mine cut. It has a squarish, cushiony shape, like a soft pillow with rounded corners. It has a high peak on top and a tiny flat facet way up at the summit. These were cut by hand, mostly before 1890, when there were no machines, and a cutter shaped each stone by eye and by candlelight. The second is the old European cut. It is round, but not like a modern round. It has a small flat top, a tall body, and big chunky facets that throw that warm flickering light. These were hand-cut roughly from 1890 through the 1930s. Why does this matter so much? Because old cut diamonds are becoming genuinely scarce, and a whole world of buyers now wants them specifically. People are paying a premium for that antique hand-cut character that no modern machine can copy. I have seen a single old European cut diamond of about 1 carat, in a simple old setting, sell for several $1,000s, purely because it was an authentic antique cut and not a modern stone. And here is the heartbreak I want to save you from. For decades, jewelers would take these old hand-cut diamonds, call them chipped or outdated, offer the owner a small trade-in, and then recut them into modern shapes or sell them to collectors. The owner walked away thinking they got a deal. They lost a small fortune. So before anyone ever tells you your grandmother's diamond is old-fashioned and worth little, look at that shape yourself. But there is a trick some old rings use to fool your eye about the stone, and I need to make sure it doesn't fool you. This part is for you, specifically. Yes, you. The one who has been half listening because you are sure the box you inherited holds nothing but cheap costume junk and old buttons. I am talking straight to you now. Because this next check is the one you can do tonight, with nothing but your own 2 hands and a lamp. Go find that box. Take out every ring with a stone in it. Now hold each one up close, under a good light, and look at the metal directly around the diamond, the part that grips the stone. On a lot of mid-century rings, from the 1940s and 50s especially, the setting was made with a wide, shiny, mirror-like plate of white metal around the little diamond. This is called an illusion setting, and its whole job was to make a tiny diamond look like a big one. From arm's length, it works. It looks like a huge, sparkling stone. Now here is what most people do. They see the illusion setting, they realize the actual diamond in the middle is small, they feel disappointed, they decide the ring is a cheap trick, and they set it aside as worthless. Do not do that. Instead, feel the ring. Illusion settings from that era were very often set in solid white gold or even platinum. So while you are fussing over the little stone, you are ignoring the real value sitting in the metal and the workmanship. Turn it over. Look inside the band for the mark. And here is the big one I want you to hunt for with your fingernail and your eyes both. Look for the word plat, or the letters spelling out platinum, or a strange little stamp that reads 10% iridium platinum, or 90% platinum, 10% iridium. Run your fingertip along the inside of the band and check for any tiny stamped letters, because platinum marks are small and worn rings hide them. Why does that one word change your night? Because platinum is the metal that separates a forgotten ring from a serious one. Platinum was the luxury metal of the early 1900s. It is heavier than gold, it is denser, and it feels noticeably weighty for its size. A platinum ring set from before World War II is almost always a piece somebody spent real money on, made by a skilled hand, and it is exactly the kind of thing that sells for hundreds to thousands today. So, the check for you tonight is simple. Every ring, under the light. Look for old cut stones with that warm, sleepy fire. Feel each ring for surprising weight, and hunt the inside of every band for that little word plat. If you find it, do not let that ring leave your house until you know what it truly is, because I promise you, the buyer standing across the counter is checking for that exact same word and counting on you not to. Now that you know to look for platinum, let me show you the era of platinum that collectors dream about. Picture a ring that looks like lace made of metal. Tiny pierced holes, delicate scrollwork, little beaded edges that look like a row of miniature pearls running along the band. That beaded edge has a name. It is called milgrain, and it was made by rolling a tiny wheel along the metal to press in those little beads by hand. This is the look of the Edwardian period, roughly 1901 through the First World War, and it flows right into the early Art Deco years. These rings were almost always platinum, because platinum is strong enough to be pulled into those impossibly thin, lacy shapes without breaking. Jewelers of that time built rings like they were building tiny cathedrals, garlands, bows, ribbons, all in white metal, all pierced and carved so fine it almost doesn't look real. Here is what happens to these in the real world. Someone inherits one, decides it looks fussy and old and far too delicate to wear, and tucks it away, or sells it for the melt value of a little metal. But a genuine Edwardian or early deco platinum filigree set is one of the most sought-after things in the entire antique jewelry world. Even with a modest center stone, these regularly sell from several $100s into the low thousands, and the finest examples go far higher. The identifiers are that hand-done milgrain beading, the pierced open lacework you can almost see through, and platinum that shows real age. Look for that garland softness, those little bows and wreaths. That is not a cheap style. That is 100-year-old luxury that survived in someone's drawer. But as delicate as those lacy rings are, the next set I want to show you is even older, even rarer, and it hides its value in a way that fools almost everyone. Now we go back further than most people ever imagined their family jewelry could reach. I want you to look for a ring where the stone seems strangely flat on top and where the back of the setting is completely closed, so you cannot see through to the finger behind the stone. That closed back is the secret. Today, every diamond ring is open underneath, so light can pass through the stone. But in the Georgian era, before 1837, and often into the early Victorian years, jewelers closed off the back of the setting completely and slipped a thin sheet of shiny metal foil behind the stone to bounce candlelight back out through it. This is called a foil-backed, closed-back setting, and it is a fingerprint of true age. The stones in these old rings are usually rose-cut, which means they are flat on the bottom and rise to a low dome of triangular facets on top, like the back of a tiny turtle shell. No bright modern sparkle, just a soft glimmer that was designed for firelight and candle flame, because that is the only light these rings were ever meant to be seen in. Here is the part that stuns people. A Georgian ring can look dull, dark, and unimpressive on a table under bright store lights. So folks assume it is a worthless old trinket, maybe not even real. But genuine Georgian rings are close to 200 years old, sometimes older, and there simply are not many left. Collectors treasure them. Depending on the stones and condition, they can sell anywhere from several $100s to many thousands, and rare examples command far more because so few survived intact. So if you find a ring with a closed metal back, flat-topped rose-cut stones, and that dark, quiet, candlelit look, do not dismiss it. You may be holding something that was on a hand 2 centuries ago, and buyers will line up for it. But diamonds are not the only stones hiding value in old wedding sets. Because the next thing I want you to check is color, and one word attached to a colored stone can multiply its worth many times over. Look for the blue ones and the red ones. Old wedding and engagement sets did not always center on a diamond. For long stretches, a rich blue sapphire or a deep red ruby was the stone of choice, and some of those colored stones are worth dramatically more than the diamonds around them. Here is the magic word, natural. And right behind it, another one, unheated. For well over 100 years now, most sapphires and rubies on the market have been heated in a furnace to improve their color. That is normal, and it is fine, but it is common. What is rare, and what serious buyers hunt for, is a sapphire or ruby that is completely natural and has never been heated at all. An old ring from before heat treatment became widespread has a real chance of holding exactly that kind of untouched natural stone. And the origin can send the value into another universe. A natural blue sapphire from Kashmir, or from old Burma, or a natural ruby from Burma can be worth astonishing sums, far beyond what its size would ever suggest. We are talking about stones, where a single fine example has sold for tens of thousands of dollars per carat at the top auction houses. Even a modest, natural, unheated sapphire in an old ring can carry many thousands of dollars of value that the owner never suspected. The everyday tell is this: if Grandma's ring has a lovely blue or red stone with a soft, velvety, slightly uneven glow, rather than the hard, perfect, glassy look of a modern lab-grown or heavily treated stone, you may be looking at a natural antique gem. You cannot confirm the origin with your eyes alone, but you can absolutely recognize that a colored stone deserves a proper look before it ever goes into a giveaway pile. Because the person who buys colored stone rings cheap is betting their whole living on the fact that you assumed it was blue glass. But there is one style of ring that combines two stones in a way most people have never even heard a name for, and it is roaring back into fashion right now. Look for a ring with two main stones sitting side by side, curving around each other, instead of one stone in the center. Two stones, often a diamond and something else, or two diamonds that seem to swirl together and cross over at the top of the band. It looks almost like two little arms embracing. This design has a French name. It is called toi et moi, which means you and me. Two stones, two souls, side by side. It goes back centuries. Napoleon is said to have given Josephine a toi et moi ring, and it stayed a symbol of romance for generations. And here is the piece of history that makes people gasp. When Jacqueline Kennedy was engaged, her ring was a toi et moi design, with a diamond and an emerald sitting side by side. For years, people who inherited a two-stone ring like this had no idea what it was. It didn't look like a normal engagement ring, so they figured it was some odd old thing nobody wanted. They undersold them constantly, but the toi et moi has come storming back into style, and demand has shot up. Genuine antique examples in gold and platinum, especially with good old cut stones, now sell strongly, from the high hundreds into the thousands depending on the stones. So if you find a two-stone ring where the gems curve and cross instead of sitting in a single row, you are not holding a mistake or an oddity. You are holding one of the oldest and most romantic ring designs in the Western world, and it is more wanted today than it has been in decades. But everything I have shown you so far is about the stone or the metal. This next thing I want you to find is a set of tiny letters that can be worth more than any diamond in the ring. Get your reading glasses. Get a magnifier if you have one, even a cheap little one, and go back inside the band of every good ring you own, because we are hunting for a signature. The most valuable thing an old ring can carry is not always the diamond. It is the name of who made it. Certain jewelers built such a reputation that their mark alone sends a ring's value soaring, and their marks are stamped small, hidden inside the band, worn faint by time. People handle these rings for years and never once read the letters. Learn these names: Tiffany & Company, Cartier, Van Cleef and Arpels, Oscar Heyman, Marcus & Company, J.E. Caldwell, Black Star and Frost. If you find any of those names stamped inside a ring, stop everything. A signed ring from one of the great houses can be worth several times what the same ring would fetch unsigned. I have seen simple, modest rings jump from a few $100s to many thousands the instant a genuine maker's signature was found inside the band. Tiffany, especially. A ring signed Tiffany & Company in platinum with an old European cut diamond is exactly the kind of piece that turns up in a family box because great-grandpa splurged a century ago and nobody in the family ever knew what he bought. The name is often stamped tiny alongside the metal mark. So look, read every letter, because the signature you almost missed is the difference between pocket change and a genuine payday. And that brings me to the top of the ladder, the one ring set I promised you at the very beginning, the one that started as something a family nearly let go for almost nothing, and became the piece I cannot stop thinking about. Here is the ring set that sits at the very top. Picture an Art Deco platinum wedding set from the 1920s or early 1930s. Two rings meant to fit together, an engagement ring and its matching band made to nest as one. The metal is platinum, marked inside with that faint 10% iridium platinum stamp. The center stone is an old European cut diamond with that warm, chunky, hand-cut fire. And around it, the platinum is worked into crisp geometric lines with milgrain beading and often little accent stones set into the shoulders, sometimes small sapphires or single-cut diamonds. Now add the two things that lift it into another world entirely. First, the diamond is a natural old cut of real size, and it turns out to be a lovely color and clarity when it is finally examined properly. Second, hidden inside that band is a signature from one of the great houses. That combination, an original Art Deco platinum set, an authentic old European cut center of good size, and a signed maker's mark, is the holy grail of overlooked wedding rings. And it does turn up in ordinary homes. Auction records from the major houses are full of Art Deco platinum diamond rings that cross the block for tens of thousands of dollars, and signed deco pieces with fine old cut center stones that climbed even higher. These are not museum treasures locked away behind glass. Many of them started exactly where yours might be right now, in a drawer, in a shoebox, in a bank envelope marked Grandma's rings that nobody had opened in 30 years. That is the small miracle of these pieces. For generations, a set like this gets passed down, and each person who inherits it thinks the same thing. It is small, it is old-fashioned. The diamond doesn't sparkle like the ones in the store. Maybe it isn't even real. And so it sits, ignored, while it is quietly one of the most valuable objects in the entire house. Until one day, one person finally turns it over, reads the faint letters inside the band, recognizes that chunky old cut and that heavy platinum, and understands what has been sitting in the family all along. I want that person to be you. I want you to be the one who finally looks, because now you know exactly what makes this set the top of the ladder. Platinum you can feel by its weight. An old European cut with soft, glowing hand-cut fire. Crisp, geometric Art Deco lines with beaded milgrain edges, and a signature hidden inside, faint and small, waiting 100 years for someone to finally read it. So here is what I need you to do this weekend. While all of this is fresh, gather every old wedding set in your home, every band, every stone, every odd little ring you never wear. Take them to a bright window or a strong lamp. Feel each one for that surprising platinum weight. Look at every stone for the warm, sleepy fire of an old cut. Check the color of the gold for that retro rose glow. Look underneath for a closed Georgian back, and read the inside of every single band, slowly, letter by letter, for a metal mark and a maker's name. Do not clean them hard. Do not polish away the marks. And whatever you do, do not accept the first low offer from anyone who tells you old rings just aren't worth much. Because the people who say that are the same people I watched smile all the way to their cars. I let a platinum band go for $11 once because I didn't know. You do not have to make my mistake. You are the kind of person who refuses to let something precious slip away for pennies, or you would not still be here with me at the very end of this. So tell me, which one of these rings do you think is sitting in your house right now? Is it the pink retro set with the bold sculptural shape? The lacy Edwardian platinum with the milgrain edge? The two-stone toi et moi that suddenly has a name? Or do you think, just maybe, you have got an old European cut hiding in a signed Art Deco band? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and I answer, and I love hearing what people find when they finally look. And if you want to keep finding the value hiding in your own home, come join the rest of us who are learning to recognize it before it walks out the door. Because next time, I am opening the drawer nobody thinks about, the old brooches and pins your grandmother wore to church, and I am going to show you the single mark that turns a dusty old pin into the most valuable thing in the room. You are not going to want to miss which one it is. If you've stayed with me this far, there's more I want to share. Inside the Hidden Treasure Circle, I take this exact video further, picking up right where we stopped. You can also ask me your own question, and a real person answers, never a bot. And you won't be alone here. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time with one click.